My name is Lucas. I grew up in a small, dirty street, full of noise, full of broken dreams. Every morning I heard people shout, dogs bark, windows slam, and doors break hard. My mother was always tired, always sad, always sleeping, always gone before I woke up. My father was never there. No hugs, no advice, no warm words, just empty silence. I learned to be quiet, learned to hide my hunger, learned to walk fast, learned to look down. The school was a cold place, broken desks, angry teachers, small fights, and loud yelling. I sat in the back seat, wore the same jacket every day, smelled like the cold streets. Kids laughed at my shoes, laughed at my old bag, laughed at my thin arms, laughed and left. At home, the lights were broken, the fridge was empty, the nights were long, and the cold deep. Sometimes my mom cried all night. Sometimes she screamed. Sometimes she just stared at the dark. I covered my head with a blanket, closed my ears tight, counted numbers to fall asleep. I dreamed of warm places, soft beds, big dinners, hugs that smelled like sunshine. When I was 16, everything broke faster. My mother disappeared one night. No goodbye, no note. I searched the neighborhood, asked the neighbors, called the hospitals, but nobody saw her again. The landlord kicked me out, no rent paid, no family to call, no door left open for me. I took my small bag, my broken shoes, my thin hope, and walked into the cold world alone. Nights were cruel. Cold benches, wet cardboard beds, dirty sidewalks, and hungry dreams. The library became my shelter. Warm walls, old books, kind silence, free small hopes. I read stories about brave heroes, about big cities, about second chances, about dreams coming true. I read out loud sometimes, acted scenes quietly, memorized lines while shivering in old jackets. People outside called me crazy. Some gave me dirty looks, some threw coins, some just walked fast. I kept practicing, kept pretending, kept believing because inside me lived a boy who refused to die. Every night under the bridge, I performed for the stars, for the rats, for the cold wind. I cried sometimes, laughed sometimes, whispered promises to myself, hugged my broken dreams close. One rainy evening, standing near the train station, I did a scene from a famous old movie. I shouted the words with feeling, moved my hands, big, made funny faces, danced on cold feet. Some homeless men clapped, laughed loudly, cheered me like a real audience, gave me their warm smiles. Among them, a man in a big coat watched me longer, smiled differently, stayed standing still. He walked closer slowly, held a notebook in his hand, looked tired, but kind, looked curious too. He asked my name, asked why I acted, asked where I learned to speak like that, asked gently. I told him everything fast about the library, about the streets, about my crazy big dreams. He nodded many times, wrote something quickly, gave me a small card, and said to meet him tomorrow. I stared at the card all night, touched it, read it again, whispered it like a secret. I had no phone, no money for a bus, so I slept close to the place, scared and excited. The morning was cold. My hands were shaking, my heart louder than cars, louder than trains. I walked to the address slowly, feeling small, feeling dirty, feeling like hope and fear mixed. When I reached the building, I wiped my shoes on the grass, fixed my torn jacket, took a breath. The door was heavy, old paint cracked, the handle cold, the lobby smelled like wet wood and coffee. I climbed the stairs slowly, heart pounding fast, knees weak, hope heavier than my small body. The office door was open. Inside was bright, papers everywhere, walls filled with smiling faces. Behind the desk sat Mr. Howard, the man from last night reading something, drinking black coffee. He looked up, smiled wide, waved me in, told me to sit down anywhere I liked. I sat on the edge of the chair, afraid to touch anything, afraid to break something good again. He said, "Relax, kid. Here we believe in second chances and maybe third ones too." He asked me to perform a small scene, any scene I knew, any story I loved. I stood up nervous, hands sweating, voice shaking, legs trembling like small branches in the wind. I closed my eyes, remembered a monologue from a movie about dreams, and started speaking slowly. At first my voice cracked, words stumbled, but soon my heart took control and my voice flew. I spoke about hope, about fear, about fighting for something when nothing belongs to you anymore. I spoke like my life depended on it, like every breath was a new chance, a new promise. When I finished, the room was silent. Mr. Howard stared at me, mouth open, coffee forgotten. Then he clapped, stood up, shook my hand hard, and said, "Kid, you have something rare." I smiled so big it hurt my face, tears burning my eyes, hands shaking from happiness. Mr. Howard made a call, fast words I didn't understand, excitement dancing in his voice. He gave me a paper with an address, a time, a simple instruction. "Go there tomorrow morning." I nodded fast, said thank you 100 times, held the paper like treasure, like life itself. That night, I slept behind the library, hugging my jacket, whispering the address over and over. I watched the stars, counted my breaths, prayed without knowing how, prayed without knowing to who. I dreamed about standing under bright lights, hearing people clap, hearing my name said out loud. I dreamed about no more cold nights, no more empty pockets, no more forgotten birthdays alone. Morning came cold again, hands stiff, body sore, but heart full, brighter than any sunshine. I walked to the address, shoes scraping the sidewalk, jacket flapping, breath misting in the air. The building was tall, glass shining, clean windows, people in fancy suits, rushing around fast. I felt small again, like a broken shoe among golden ones. But I walked through the door anyway. Inside smelled like fresh carpet, perfume, and strong coffee. Smelled like success and clean dreams. A woman at the desk smiled politely, asked my name, pointed me to a hallway filled with chairs. Other people waited too. Young and pretty, neat hair, clean shoes, expensive clothes, expensive smiles. I sat between them, feeling my heart race, feeling my jacket itch, feeling my stomach twist tight. My name was called, my legs wobbled, my throat dry, my dreams standing heavy on my shoulders. I walked into a small room, lights too bright, 2 people at a table, papers in their hands. They asked me to read a few lines, asked me to act as if my life depended on it. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, remembered the cold nights, remembered why I started. I spoke from my heart. Not just words, but feelings. Not just acting, but living the moment. When I finished, they nodded, smiled small smiles, thanked me politely, and said they would call soon. I left the room, shaking, unsure if I failed, unsure if I impressed them, unsure if hope was enough. I sat outside the building for hours, watching people live their big, fast lives, feeling small but proud. I had tried. I had dared. I had taken the biggest step of my small life. That night, I walked back to my corner, bought a small sandwich, ate it slowly, like a king. Every bite tasted like dreams. Every breath tasted like bravery. Every step home felt lighter. I slept on the cold concrete, but I slept with a smile, a real full smile, the first in years. Days passed, cold ones, long ones, lonely ones. But inside me, something had changed forever. I kept practicing lines at night, reading scripts under streetlights, performing scenes for the wind. People laughed sometimes, people stared. But I kept going because now my heart knew how to hope. Every morning I waited near the library phone booth, hoping, wishing, praying for that one call. One morning, while the sun was barely up, while the air was still cold and heavy, the phone rang. I jumped up fast, heart racing wild, hands shaking badly. Fear and hope mixed together. I grabbed the receiver, pressed it hard to my ear, whispered hello with a dry throat. A warm voice answered. A woman said gently, "Is this Evan? We would like you to come back." My knees almost gave up. I leaned on the wall, closed my eyes, whispered, "Thank you 1,000 times." She gave me an address, a different building this time, a real studio, a real audition room. I wrote it down with a shaking hand, memorized it again and again, hugged the paper tight. That night, I could not sleep. I lay under the stars, smiling like a fool, crying like a child. I dreamed about bright lights, about people cheering, about a warm bed, about hearing my name. I dreamed about standing on a stage, feeling proud, feeling seen, feeling alive for the first time. When morning came, I washed my face in a public restroom, fixed my old jacket, fixed my hope. I walked to the new address, step after step, whispering lines, whispering dreams, whispering promises. The building was bigger, cleaner, full of rushing people, important voices, doors that click shut fast. I waited in a small lobby surrounded by posters of movies, famous faces, dreams that once were dust. My name was called again. My heart almost stopped. My legs almost refused. But my soul pushed forward. Inside the room, it was warm, cozy. 2 smiling people sat behind a table, waiting kindly. They gave me a small scene to read, a short part. A funny boy full of energy and heart. I read the lines slowly, then faster, then with a laugh, then with tears, then with all my soul. The woman smiled wide. The man nodded fast. They whispered to each other. They looked at me. She said, "You have something real, Evan. Something we cannot teach. Something you carry deep inside." I felt my knees shake, my lips tremble, my chest fill with warm air, my eyes burn with tears. They asked if I could come again next week to meet a bigger director to try for a small part. I said yes so fast, so hard. I almost shouted it, almost cried it, almost laughed out loud. They laughed kindly, gave me a bottle of water, a small sandwich, a small, real moment of care. When I walked out of the building, I felt taller, stronger, lighter, like someone had given me wings. The streets were the same, dirty, noisy, busy, but they looked different. They smelled sweeter. I bought a small chocolate bar with my last coins, ate it slowly, smiled at every person passing. That night, sleeping near the park, I felt richer than kings. I felt blessed. I felt seen by life. Days passed slowly, painfully, beautifully, each one carrying small fears, small joys, small dreams. I practiced scenes every day, acted out lines to trees, benches, pigeons, passing taxi drivers. I made people laugh sometimes, made them stop and watch, made them wonder, made them smile a little. I carried my dreams like fire, careful not to let the cold winds put them out too soon. The next week I showed up early, sat on the steps of the studio reading old scripts quietly. The director came late, important, busy, big smile, small glasses, quick steps, sharp eyes like arrows. He watched me for a long moment, asked me to stand up, asked me to perform without a script. I did a small scene, A boy chasing a lost dog, crying in the rain, laughing through tears. The director clapped once hard and loud, then pointed at me and said, "We can use this boy." I almost fell backwards, almost screamed, almost hugged him, but instead I just stood smiling foolishly. He told me it was a small role, only a few lines, only one small scene, but it was real. I said yes without thinking, said yes with all my soul, said yes like a starving boy seeing food. I signed a paper with a shaky hand, wrote my name big and proud, bigger than ever before. They gave me a small advance, some money to buy clean clothes, a haircut, a warm meal too. I walked to the nearest store, bought simple jeans, a clean shirt, new socks, and a cheap jacket. When I saw myself in the mirror, I almost cried, almost did not recognize the boy standing tall. I was still me, still Evan, but now with cleaner shoes, brighter eyes, stronger hope inside my chest. I walked back to the street, smiling, holding my small bag, holding my big dreams even tighter. I passed by the places I used to sleep, waved at the shadows, whispered promises to the dark corners. I promised to never forget where I came from, never forget the cold nights, never forget the broken boy. The day of the shooting came fast, and the morning cold, the sky gray, my heart full of fire. I stood outside the studio gates, new jacket on, old dreams burning, small paper in my hand. People rushed around holding cameras, scripts, coffee cups, radios, shouting instructions like a big storm. I walked slowly, looking around, trying to breathe, trying not to get swallowed by the noise. A man in a cap pointed at me, shouted my name, waved for me to follow quickly inside. We passed by huge lights, cables snaking like rivers, big sets built like real streets and houses. Everyone seemed to know their place, their role, their importance, while I felt tiny like a lost bird. But deep inside, I knew this was where I belonged, where my heart always told me to go. They gave me a script again, simple lines, simple actions, but every word felt heavy and bright. My scene was short. A small boy helping a lost tourist, offering directions with a sweet smile. I read it 100 times, whispered it to myself, acted it out near the mirrors, near the doors. When my turn came, I stood under bright hot lights, blinking hard, breathing fast, heart ready to burst. The director called action, and for the first time I forgot the streets, forgot the cold, forgot the hunger. I became the boy smiling kindly, helping a stranger, speaking with hope, laughing like the world was good. When the director shouted, "Cut," people clapped lightly. Someone patted my back. Someone said, "Good job, kid." I stood frozen, tears burning my eyes again, smiling wide, feeling like a small king crowned by life. After the scene, I sat in the corner holding a bottle of water, feeling every muscle in my body shake. I watched the other actors, the real stars, moving like they belonged, laughing like old friends, shining. I did not know if I would ever get another chance, another role, another moment under the lights, but I knew this moment was mine. Mine alone. Mine forever. No matter what happened next, a woman from the studio came to me, gave me a small envelope, smiled warmly, wished me good luck. Inside was a check, a real check with my name on it, money I earned with my heart and soul. I stared at it for a long time, fingers trembling, heart whispering, "Thank you," over and over again. That night, I ate a hot meal. Real food on a real plate, not scraps, not cold sandwiches anymore. I rented a small room, tiny but clean, a window that opened to real sky, not broken walls. I bought a notebook, a pen, new shoes that did not leak rain, a new simple jacket. Every night, I wrote dreams on the pages, scenes I imagined, characters I built, stories I wanted to live. I told myself, Evan, this is not the end. This is the first tiny brick of a giant future. Days passed, slow and sweet. New auditions came. Some I lost, some I won. But I kept walking forward. I met people who believed in broken boys, directors who saw something raw, something real in my eyes. Sometimes I slept hungry again. Sometimes I doubted again. Sometimes the city felt too big, too loud. But I never gave up. Never let the old fears choke me again. Never let my dreams sleep again. One day I got a call for a small part in an independent film. A story about street kids surviving. I read the script and cried. Every word felt like a mirror. Every scene smelled like my old nights. I went to the audition, poured my soul out, cried real tears, laughed real laughs, gave them my truth. The director stood up, shook my hand hard, and said, "Welcome home, Evan. Welcome to the real fight." The film was low budget, no big lights, no famous names, but it was honest. It was alive. We filmed in real streets, real dirty corners, real rain falling hard, real hunger in our acting. I slept on old couches, ate cheap food, wore secondhand clothes, but every day felt like magic. The first time I saw myself on screen, I covered my mouth and cried. Cried for the boy who survived. People started to notice. Small articles in newspapers, small interviews on radios, small claps from strangers. I walked the same streets, past the same bridges, the same benches where I once slept. Cold and alone, but now I was different. Not because of fame, not because of money, but because I kept walking. I kept believing, kept fighting, kept dreaming. When everything told me to stop, when everyone stopped watching, I bought coffee for the homeless boys I passed. Gave them small notes saying, "Dream louder, dream bigger." I knew the pain in their eyes, the hunger in their bones, the broken dreams sleeping under their thin jackets. I wanted to be the voice I never had, the hand I never found, the hope I almost lost. Some smiled back, some cried quietly, some just nodded, but I knew the seed of hope was planted. One evening I sat on the roof of my building, cheap coffee in my hand, old shoes on my feet. The city lights twinkled below like stars fallen on dirty streets, like dreams surviving dust and noise. I smiled at the moon, whispered thank you to the cold wind, closed my eyes, and felt peace. For the first time, I felt like life owed me nothing, and I owed life nothing back, just gratitude. The days kept moving. I kept waking early, kept smiling at the cold air, kept whispering dreams. Every morning felt heavy sometimes, but I walked forward step after step, never letting fear win. I acted in more small movies, short scenes, tiny parts, but every role meant the world to me. Each line I spoke felt like a gift. Each smile from a stranger felt like a medal on my chest. Sometimes the city felt too big, too loud, too full of people who forgot how to look and listen. But I remembered the streets that raised me, the benches that taught me, the hunger that shaped me. I never stopped writing in my notebook, dreams filling the pages, dreams bigger than my old broken shoes. At night, I sat by my small window, drank cheap coffee, and whispered, "Thank you to the stars." One evening, I walked past the old station, saw a young boy sitting alone, cold, hugging his niece. I bought 2 sandwiches, sat beside him, smiled, and said, "You are not invisible. You are a fighter." He looked at me, eyes full of doubt, But a small light flickered deep inside, and he smiled weakly. I knew that smile. I lived that smile. And I knew it could save a soul if someone believed enough. Time passed. My name grew a little. My world grew a little. But my heart stayed tied to the streets. I visited shelters. I gave talks. I sat and listened to kids tell me their broken dreams and fears. I told them about Evan, the boy who slept under bridges, who dreamed even with an empty stomach. I told them about hope, about holding on when hands are cold, about fighting for a sunrise no one sees. Success tasted sweeter because I knew hunger. Love felt deeper because I knew loneliness. Peace felt louder because I knew storms. No amount of money or fame could replace the boy who survived the nights no one else saw. When I looked in the mirror, I saw not just a man, not just an actor, but a story still being written. And I promised myself no matter how far I went, I would always be the boy who refused to give up.